The biggest argument that I have ever seen about why to be bullish on Bitcoin is to escape this central bank digital currency system that the elites are pushing. All of the major banking giants are pushing it, like the BIS, for an example, the IMF, the World Bank, etc. And what if I told you that what the Bitcoin maxis are doing right now and what they're celebrating is actually completely defeating the entire purpose of Bitcoin? Welcome to the channel, everyone. My name is Nick. For those that are new to the channel, hopefully by the end of this video, you do become a subscriber. If we take a quick look at what recently was just announced by the Bank of Korea, they are now launching a CBDC payment trial in supermarkets. This happened 6 days ago, less than 1 week ago. And 100,000 participants will be part of this test. It is starting in December. They have retail partnerships and global initiatives already tapped in. So this is a very important stage around the CBDC push. Now, back in August of 2023, I did make a post actually talking about Bitcoin and, why this whole argument around escaping CBDCs is just nonsense. I said I love how the argument from Bitcoin maxis around escaping CBDCs is simply holding Bitcoin. Today's Bitcoin versus 2009 Bitcoin is extremely different. I don't think the original idea of Bitcoin was celebrating and welcoming BlackRock to launch an ETF, scared of being controlled by CBDCs, but not scared of a scarce asset that has practically priced retail out. While one of the largest corporations filed for a Bitcoin ETF, it makes zero sense to me. BlackRock owns the largest percentage of everything around you. Don't think they will own the largest percentage of Bitcoin either. Think again, Bitcoin will soon be corporation controlled. And we're already kind of at that stage, right? Where a very significant percentage of Bitcoin is actually controlled and held by Wall Street, governments, and corporations like BlackRock. And it is, in my opinion, something that should concern every single Bitcoin holder. But also, it should concern every crypto holder as well, because remember that Bitcoin is the captain of the ship. Bitcoin, in terms of dominance, controls this market. So if you control Bitcoin, you control crypto. I strongly encourage everyone to join the free Discord. There's going to be a link at the top of the description below. This is one of the most valuable and informative Discords out there, and it's completely free. There's a free side that has a ton of free crypto gems, free market strategies, guides, market trends, free charts, and there's also going to be new cheat sheets dropped in this Discord. And already, we have a ton of testimonials from members of the Discord that have been absolutely loving it. So what are you waiting for? Go and click the link at the top of the description below and join the free Discord. Now, also, as we do really kind of look at CBDC initiatives, we have here as of September 17th, 134 countries are exploring central bank digital currencies, which is 98% of the world's economy. And a BIS survey found that 94% of central banks are exploring CBDCs. It always starts with a test before accelerating. How can anyone believe the threat is over? Let me guess. Trust the plan. Today's CBDC status. And here we have it, right? I actually have this open over here. This is the status. And what's crazy about this is we already know that the Bank of Korea is pushing their CBDC further. A lot of nations around the world are pushing their CBDC forward. But also, if you look at the news behind CBDCs, we could see all of the recent updates that have happened around a CBDC. And a lot of these are not fully up to date, but they are definitely ones that we have seen in just the last 2 years alone. But also, CBDC number of countries worldwide that are involved in the development of a central bank digital currency from 2017 to 2024. Look at this. This is very important to focus on. Now, I am expecting 2025 for this to actually really jump up. And the reason why I say that is because we're now starting to see advancements happening around major economies with CBDCs. We know that the BRICS nations are heavily involved in the development of digital payment systems and CBDCs, and also even gold-backed currencies, which are going to be digital. So I do expect 2025 to really kind of heat up around heavy discussions with CBDCs in mind. So definitely focus on this, because it is not some, theory that people are pushing. It's not some, fantasy land theory. No, this is actually happening, and central banks are planning this. And also over here, we have just in the IMF staff proposes REDI framework to catalyze CBDC adoption. The paper recommended implementing inclusive strategies for intermediaries and end users and introduced a high-level framework, the REDI framework, to help spur CBDC adoption. And in this, here's the full REDI breakdown. We have regulation, education, design, and deployment, and then incentives. Oh, you gotta love those incentives, right? Hey, if you use a CBDC, here are some incentives, which this is always something that I've said they're going to do. Now, how can some of those incentives look? Well, for an example, we're gonna wipe some of your debt if you use a CBDC, or hey, we're going to give you, a monthly salary in CBDCs, or we're going to do this, do that. It's always going to be some sort of incentive that you just really can't turn down. For a lot of people, it's going to be debt. I think that's going to be wiping people's debt. I think that that's definitely going to be a big one because we're starting to move towards a completely different monetary system. But here we have the full framework, right? Regulation, intermediary participation in the CBDC ecosystem, legal tender status, user fee structure, minimum quality standards for services, education, which I'm sure everyone knows about education around this already, CBDC design and features, deployment and onboarding strategies, monetary and non-monetary incentives for intermediaries, and then onboarding incentives and usage incentives for end users. Interesting. Now, according to the IMF staff members, successful CBDC adoption will require proactive strategic policy and design choices that benefit end users and intermediaries. Now, as we think about this, all right, what about Bitcoin? Because isn't Bitcoin, the thing that allows us to escape a CBDC? Check this out from Whitney Webb. So back in April, we saw the U.S. Department of Justice arrest popular Bitcoin mixer wallet founders and CEO charged with money laundering. And if we actually look at this, there's a war on financial privacy. It will not magically stop because you hold some Bitcoin and numbers goes up. Larry, markets like totalitarian governments, Fink plus his cronies want to make Bitcoin part of the programmable surveillance digital money ecosystem. They are winning right now. And yes, we have handed over Bitcoin to these massive players, but it's not us, right? If we had a choice of welcoming in BlackRock or not, I'm sure that there would have been a large pushback, but I also think that it would have got through because of these billionaires that are also incentivized to, keep pushing the Bitcoin train. And I think that they're all tied together. Why are we trusting billionaires so easily? Why are we looking at Sailor and saying, yeah, I want to follow Sailor into the depths of hell, essentially? It's ridiculous. These are billionaires. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. They don't care about the future of Bitcoin. They care about making money off of these things, which they are. But also over here, we have Bitcoin could be used to perpetuate the global interest-based central bank's fiat system. Some Bitcoin enthusiasts simply want to vote for a candidate who is pro-Bitcoin. Wall Street is warming up to Bitcoin. The establishment is cozying up to Bitcoin. Trump stated at the Bitcoin conference that he wants to yoke Bitcoin and dollar-denominated stablecoins together, using that to expand US dollar hegemony. Do you want hyper-Bitcoinization at all cost, even if it means Bitcoin is no longer a tool for financial freedom and is instead used by intelligence agencies for surveillance and by Wall Street for its own purposes? If you want Bitcoin to end irresponsible fiscal policy and serve as a tool for financial freedom for everyone, then Trump's policies don't align with that goal. Now, I'm staying out of the political talk here because on both sides of the spectrum, we're not going to really see anything change around Bitcoin, in my opinion. I think that we're still going to see the Wall Street control. I think that Bitcoin itself, it's already too far gone. But we have Trump has been openly against CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, but is pro stablecoins. However, stablecoins are just as surveillable and programmable as CBDCs, and I completely agree. Remember what a stablecoin actually is. A stablecoin versus a CBDC, they're both the same thing. A central bank digital currency is just issued out by the government. A stablecoin is just issued out by a private company. But we have stablecoin companies like Circle openly discuss the programmability of their stablecoins. Circle is deeply involved with BlackRock. BlackRock is the largest funder behind Circle. Tether has an alliance with the FBI and the Secret Service. They freeze wallets at the behest of the US government. They are an extension of the US fiscal policy. It's a public-private partnership. This is the model the US favors. We need to build robust privacy tools on Bitcoin's base layer. We should make Bitcoin transactable rather than just a store of value that people hold. BlackRock's Larry Fink views Bitcoin as technology for asset storage. The dollar is hyperinflating into Bitcoin. Countries are de-dollarizing. There's less incentive to hold US treasuries because the US keeps printing US dollars. However, stablecoins are now providing record demand for US treasuries. Since the creation of the Federal Reserve, the US dollar's purchasing power has been declining for over 100 years. To move away from this, some see Bitcoin as the only means of digital credit. yoking digital dollars to Bitcoin and using it as a sink for hyperinflation seems to be the idea. The best person to speak on this is Mark Goodwin, who wrote the book, The Bitcoin Dollar. He is the editor-in-chief of Bitcoin Magazine. If the system comes to fruition, it has major implications for why many people get into Bitcoin in the first place to stop irresponsible central bank policy and debt burden. Bitcoin does not provide an incentive to stop printing or issuing interest-bearing debt, since they would just use Bitcoin as a sink. So Bitcoin could possibly not kill fiat central banks and the debt-based usurious system, but rather perpetuate it. And check this video clip out. It's about 6 minutes long. This is from Natalie Brunell, but listen closely to this.
That actually makes me think of a question for you related to Bitcoin, because a lot of people want to vote orange. They really just want to pick the candidate that is going to be most friendly to Bitcoin. And I know you've done a lot of research and work in this area, because when we went to the Bitcoin conference, we did see a lot of conservative figures. Trump came out and said he's going to be for Bitcoin and embrace it. We had RFK Jr. since last year saying he has policies that are going to be pro-Bitcoin. And then the Biden and Kamala administration, they've been the most hostile. I think some people are trying to open up communication lines, but they haven't been going that well. Can you offer your take on specifically related to Bitcoin, the people that are passionate about financial freedom and the candidates that we have to select from?
Yeah, well, I think it's pretty obvious that it's the conservative camp really only, aside from, RFK being an independent, they're interested in really appealing to the Bitcoin base at all as it relates to electoral politics. And they've done so very successfully. But I think, again, what you're seeing here is sort of what we saw over the course of the past year was sort of Wall Street warming up to Bitcoin. And what we're seeing, it's just another extension of the establishment cozying up to Bitcoin, I guess. So I guess you could frame, Larry Fink's about face and all of that as sort of the private sector establishment turnaround, and this is sort of the public sector establishment turnaround. But as far as it relates to financial freedom, I don't think the policies expressed by, Trump, or at least what Trump expressed or hinted at in his speech, because he didn't, as far as RFKs went, he was more deliberate about what his policies specific, and Trump was a little more vague. But based on what, Trump said, talking about sort of yoking Bitcoin and the dollar together and using that to expand the dollar's power and hegemony globally, and then also bringing in stablecoins, which of course would be in this case dollar-denominated stablecoins, into the play. We have to consider what that means if the reason we're voting for it is to ensure that Bitcoin will be used to propagate financial freedom globally. So, if you're of the opinion that you want Bitcoin to be, hyper-Bitcoinization to come at all costs, even if that means it not being a tool for financial freedom anymore, or it being used by intelligence agencies to surveil people, or by Wall Street to, do their thing, then maybe it's fine. But if you're of the idea that, I want Bitcoin to be empowered to end irresponsible fiscal policy at the national level and want it to ensure financial freedom for everybody, then I don't think Trump's policies necessarily spell that out, unfortunately. And part of that has to do with the whole stablecoin play. So Trump has been very openly against central bank digital currencies, but the problem with stablecoins, particularly the big ones, is that they're just as programmable and surveillable as CBDCs could be. So most people are against CBDCs because of the programmability aspect and and the surveillability aspect, being able to trace and surveil every dollar you spend. And stablecoins can offer that as well, because most of them are built. They're like ERC20 tokens right at the end of the day, and have that programmability functionality. And some stablecoin issuers that are prominent, like Circle, openly talk about the programmability aspects of their stablecoin. And, they're in a very deep alliance with BlackRock, Circle particularly, and Tether itself has made an alliance with the FBI and the Secret Service and, other aspects of the U.S. government to freeze wallets at the behest of the U.S. government, thereby making Tether sort of a soft extension of U.S. foreign and fiscal policy abroad as it relates to sanctions and other things. Some of which the U.S., of course, in the past has used to facilitate regime change operations and other things, not necessarily stop terrorism, as they are inclined to say. So it's important to keep that in mind. And, if you're allowing intelligence agencies, what the FBI technically is, to be onboarded onto your stablecoin, it's really not a private sector thing. It's a public-private partnership. And public-private partnership is the model that the U.S. and really most of the world essentially favors. And so, I think these stablecoins offer that same kind of threat to financial freedom, or, easily could, were things to develop that way. And so, if programmability and surveillability is the threat to financial freedom, then we should not support that, right? And instead look for ways to build robust privacy tools on the base layer of Bitcoin, maybe, and try and make it something that's transactable, as opposed to this idea of having it be a storage or a technology for asset storage, as Larry Fink says, and something no one spends and people just hold, which is, what Larry Fink wants, and also, the way Bitcoin would be utilized in the framework that was laid out in the Trump speech at the conference.
I want to dig into stablecoins and dollar hegemony a little bit more, because I heard you and Mark Goodwin, your co-author of one of the investigations on the What Bitcoin Did podcast. And I'm not sure if it was you or Mark, but talking about the idea of the dollar hyperinflating into Bitcoin almost. And I was wondering if you could kind of break down the mechanics, because I know a lot of my viewers or listeners will be familiar with the fact that the dollar is in trouble, maybe not in the near term, because these things take a while to play out, but countries are de-dollarizing. There's less of an incentive to hold US treasuries because we just keep printing. Now stablecoins are providing new demand for these treasuries, which would potentially extend
record demand, really.
Yeah, which could extend dollar dominance dominance, but like, what is this plan that you sort of see in place, this strategy, so that the dollar remains the global reserve currency, but there is that Bitcoin component to it?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you consider what the fiscal policy has been with respect to the dollar, since the creation of the Federal Reserve, the purchasing power of the dollar has just, been demolished over the course of the past 100+ years. So in order to sort of get away from that, viewing Bitcoin as really the only means of digital credit, if you're going to make, digital dollars, if you're able to yoke digital dollars to that and use it as a sink for hyperinflation, that seems to be sort of the idea here. And obviously the person that can speak best to this is Mark, who wrote the book on the Bitcoin dollar. As he calls it. And I would really recommend anyone more interested in that to either look up his interviews or read his book, because he's obviously a lot more qualified to talk about that than I am. But I think ultimately at the end of the day, if that system is to come to fruition, it has major implications for why a lot of people got into Bitcoin in the first place, which is to stop irresponsible central bank policy and irresponsible U.S. government fiscal policy and, the debt burden and all of that, because it doesn't provide any incentive for them to stop hyperinflating, essentially, or printing, creating more debt and all of that. They just view the view seems to be that they could just use it as a sink for the debt. So, I don't necessarily think that's the big win that maybe some people are framing it as. And I also don't see, necessarily perpetuating the hegemony of the dollar or fiat in general as necessarily a good thing, because, it's just sort of a symptom of the debt-based monetary policy that the world has had for a few hundred years now. And obviously there have been a lot of problems that have come with that. And I think, as people in the Bitcoin space have pointed out for a long time, that really can't continue. And so do we really want to use Bitcoin to perpetuate that? I think that's an important question. To ask. And I mean, obviously something has to be done about the U.S. national debt, but is this really the best way to do it? And I don't know. I personally think that some of the people responsible for all of the debt in government, Congress, who are, most of those people are multimillionaires working on behalf of multi-billionaires. Maybe they should be held accountable for some of the national debt stuff and not just be like, oh, we can use Bitcoin as our plaything to sort of get out of all the irresponsible decisions we've made for the past, 100 years plus.
But I know that you do see potential for Bitcoin, and it is.
And I think that this is truly the shocking truth about why BlackRock pushed the, ETF so heavily, why they are pushing Bitcoin so heavily. I also think that this is the shocking truth on why the ETF had no other choice but to approve the ETF, right? I think that the SEC had to approve that ETF because this was all by plan. They wanted to increase demand for US Treasuries. They wanted to increase the market around the US dollar. This is just to build upon the US dollar hegemony at the same time that we are starting to see dollar or de-dollarization at record heights, right? All of this is all planned. And BlackRock was specifically brought in my opinion, to really kind of be, the ones that are actually perpetuating this. The leaders behind this, the ones that will really kind of be, the driver of this. And it's already working. It's already working in a very large way. And I do think that this is all to continue to push and push and push towards that digital system. I think that this is all to really kind of support CBDCs. I think that this is to support, what these elites want to do. I mean, we already know that the BIS is pushing the FinTernet, the financial system for the future. And this does tie in CBDCs. It ties in, tokenized private sector initiatives like, for example, stablecoins and deposit tokens. And it's revolutionizing everything around us. But the full focus is CBDCs. Now, I have been a very big supporter and investor of XRP. And this is simply because I think that everyone should hold XRP if this is the future that we're headed into, because, the elites are pushing this heavily. We know that they are choosing, the winners that they are going to be using. And I see a lot of people, saying like, oh, well, if you invest in XRP, you're supporting this. Me holding a portion of XRP in my portfolio it's me making sure that I have a piece of this future financial system if they are going to use Ripple and XRP, which we already know that the BIS is working with Ripple. We know that Ripple is pushing XRP in the XRP ledger. I think everyone should have a safety net to this by holding assets that the elites are choosing. Because if this is becoming a reality, the way to win is not by investing into some currency that might be an escape from this, which we can clearly see that it's not because of these massive corporations like BlackRock pushing it heavily. Why would I invest into something that BlackRock is openly pushing and advertising on mainstream media? It doesn't seem like the right move. It doesn't seem like that is a safe bet. The safe bet seems like the asset that nobody wants to talk about. You're never seeing it on mainstream media. It was, in a lawsuit by the regulators For me personally, that's why I support XRP. I hold XRP because if this is going to be the system that we are getting into, I might as well at least enrich myself through something like this. And I do believe that XRP holders will see significant values on XRP and be able to change the lives around them in a good way, even though we are headed towards something like a CBDC system. But also, I think that the big news here is what BlackRock is doing, what all of these big players around the government sector and these agencies like the FBI, the Fed, the FDIC, because remember that this is all tied back to Operation Choke Point 2.0 as well, to choke out, traditional companies in this space, to welcome in Wall Street and the big corporations like BlackRock. It's the same exact reason why Custodia Bank cannot get a charter license, right? It's just ridiculous. And, they wanted a Fed account for so long, a Fed master account. They got completely blocked out. And it goes all the way up the food chain. It's not just an SEC problem, it's the entire government sector problem around crypto and the attack on crypto just to, hand it over to Wall Street. So with that being said, if you guys enjoyed this video, if you guys definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord down in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.